Hello. Hello. In these videos I'm sharing some of the coordinates of the practice of breathwork. Breathwork is the approach that I take to breathwork. And at the outset I want to bring in the body. So in this particular video I'm going to be sharing about breath and movement. You may have noticed they are always in some way together. I'm going to give coordinates or ways in which we can bring them apart creatively and play with them in different variations and combinations, breath and movement. So it's going to be something like prompts or coordinates that you can use in your practice, in practicing breath work and including the body. We're wanting to ultimately breathe from our toes. We're wanting to have a full-bodied, we're wanting to fully integrate the body and the breath. So the first way is that the breath leads, or the body follows the breath. In this instance, your focus is primarily on your breathing, but you are also moving. So the majority of your attention is on your breathing, but you're moving. So maybe on a walk, but your attention is more on your breath than it is on the stride that you are in. It might also look like something less repetitive and intuitive, as you let the primary point of attention be the pattern of breathing that you're in, and then you are following the breath, and the body is following you, following the breath and the movement that follows there. The second is the breath follows the body, or the breath and the body are in sync in some way. So I'm breathing in when I come up, and I'm breathing down, or I'm breathing out when I go down, or in left, exhale right. This lends itself more to repetition, which is valuable. Breathing in when I come forward, exhale when I go out. Now, some interesting information around this that is secondhand, so it's used more to prompt and provoke your own practice than me caring about the source or the validity. It's an idea that animals are not capable of teasing apart the breath and the body in the way that we are. We can achieve some freedom between the way that our body is moving and the breath pattern as it is associated with it. For animals, it is more the case that the moving pattern and the breathing pattern are simultaneous and conjoined and together. There isn't as much freedom in pulling them apart. This might be why we are such successful long-distance runners. If we did not have this capacity, then it's likely that we would tire ourselves out in the organism a lot quicker. But that we can moderate our breath in terms of the movement that the body is doing, means perhaps that we can run further. It might be a causal explanation for our unique capacity in the animal kingdom for long distance running, for perpetuity. So now, breathwork uses dialectical material as prompts or coordinates for your taking or your practicing breathwork. There's some peripheral things here in terms of a say a thesis or a conviction that, or the experience that one of the primary and most useful materials to be over when you are breathing is philosophical, and so the breath can become a means to explore and engage material, and it can become like a means of exploring ideas, a different means to perhaps the talking methods that we become accustomed to and seem to insist, or the writing and the reading. You can take material and be over it and work with it with your breathing. That's being put forward by breathology. So what I mean by dialectical, I mean material that is in some way opposed, so opposite, conflicting, contradictory, like two pieces of material that seem to be opposed to one another or contradictory, but are in some way joined, not contradictory, that are in some way united. So two truths that seem to conflict and be contradictory, but are at the same time true. The most closest example would be coming into conflict with another, where both of your perspectives convey truth, but they are clashing, they are conflicting with one another. So two faces with one another. The dialectical material that I want to say is important in this instance, in terms of breath and movement, is that of repetition and variance. So the first, where the body is following the breath, that disposes itself to the mode of variance, or variance can also be understood as exploration, where you're exploring. It opens itself to intuitive discovery, where you discover new things. Now, what you discover might be the other side of the dialectical thing, which is repetition. You discover a pattern, something that it would be beneficial for you to repeat. Now you're in a mode of exploiting. You're exploiting that nugget, that's something that you found. This particular breathing pattern, this particular moving pattern has yielded something. Now if you move off that too quickly, and if you continue in the variance and in the intuitive looking around, you haven't exploited it. You haven't gained what there is to be gained from that discovery. So you have to balance and oppose these two things. If you're always repeating the same thing, it's going to run dry. You're not going to be making the appropriate discoveries, and you're not going to be bringing in good material in terms of your body and its movement. If you're always exploring, you never have the time to digest and really mull and extract the benefit from what you have discovered. So these two in your practice need to be they need to be in constant opposition. You need to think of them as one, in a sense, and that's why I use the word dialectic, because I want you to think of the things opposed together as one. And the things being opposed here, the first one would be breath and movement, and we noticed how they are in some way actually all together, but we have creative distance and space. We can bring them together in different ways, and this might be something very human. This capacity might be a very human capacity. So this, I'm imploring you, like, explore this, explore the ways that the breath and the body comes together. Some practical elements would be that, in terms of containing or constraining your practice, time and task. Time keeps you honest. We all have different kind of dispositions towards. Some of us really love getting into a system and into repeatable motions and movements, but we all have to confess at some stage that can run dry. The benefit that we derive from it won't be perpetual. So we have to explore, we have to open up our practice, take in influence. But if we too disposed to trying to look for new things and take in new influences and try another breathing pattern and a breathing movement, and we don't stick to something for long enough, then we never extract that value. In that instance, time can keep you honest. It's, I'm going to be in this practice, in this frame, in this container for X amount of minutes, and then the time keeps you honest in exploring that. Okay, now, what is it that we are looking for? What is the quality that we want to find? What is the quality that we want to engage the practice in? And when I say the practice, I'm saying about each moment of that you are breathing, each time you breathe. What's the, if I'm going to exploit something, what am I exploiting it for? What am I hoping to find? There needs to be some sense of direction or orientation. There's a trifecta that I introduced in the previous video. It's joyful, holotropic, perpetuity. I'll unpack that in the video, or I did unpack that in the video that is before this, but as I record this, I'm going to do that after this. So let's just run down quickly. Breath and movement. We want to breathe through our toes, from our toes. We want full-bodied breath and body, bringing breath through into the body, bringing the body up into the breath so that it's a full-bodied happening, each breath. We can explore this in two ways. We can let the body or the movement that we are in follow the lead of the breath, and then the primary focus is our breathing. Or we can come to a space where we are, the breath and the body are synced in some way. So the opposite would be obviously that the breath follows the body, the breath follows the movement. So you start moving and then you find a breathing pattern that comes into that movement. But I'm also speaking here in terms of the repetitive motion. So it's, because I'm turning my head left, I'm breathing in. Because I'm turning my head right, I'm breathing out. It's in sync. Or when you're running, it's now stay in that rhythm. This is really great for endurance athletes, but that's just aside. The breath is something that can pull you through wall after wall after wall, if you let it be your focus, and you're toggling there between the breath, following the breath, and the move. Okay, let me put that down. You're keeping alive the dialectic relationship between repetition and variance, and you're using constraints creatively in your practice to contain your practice, giving yourself task and a set limit of time in which you explore the constraints of that task. For these 5 minutes, I'm going to breathe in this way and move my body in this way. Then you assess that and say, did I discover anything that I can exploit and explore? Or, okay. Joyful, holotropic, perpetuity. In the next video, in the previous video that is going to be recorded next.